because I like to get weird.
Oh, no way. Oh my God. No way. Oh my God.
I know. This is how we start. So, hey, everybody. But that's what Chiller Chatters is, Greg. It's a loose fit, and that's what the people are here for, damn it. That's what the people are here for.
Like a comfy pair of pants.
Like a comfy pair of pants on a cold winter day. Like a warm cup of coffee to fill your belly. Yeah. Welcome, everybody, to Chiller Chatters, episode 3, where we don't edit the show, but we have a fucking great time. All right?
Yeah.
Even when it's Chiller Chatters, I like to ask, how goes it? Hello, Greg.
Okay, man. Cool. Actually, I'm super hyped for what we got today.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am too. I think we have two very good stories, very opposite ends of the spectrum. But I know, so mine carries a little significance in United Kingdom law, and is kind of a tie-in to another story we're going to cover pretty soon. So that's
I don't
the tease.
have a passport. Is that going to be an issue?
Nah, I'll take. You're my plus one. We're flying private. So I'll get us started because I know you've got. I'm excited for what you brought, but this outline I have is full assist by Jaxxolantern. If you know from Discord. If you're in Discord, you already know Jaxxolantern.
If you know, you know, and if
Yes.
you don't, what the fuck is you doing?
Yeah, something like that. Greg's more up on the modern vernacular than I am. So Jaxxolantern sent me over an outline. Generally, when I get them, I go through and I start adding a little bit to them. And this one was pretty well filled out. So we collaborated a little bit on this one, and I appreciated Jaxxolantern. She has some that are coming down the line too. She has some other ones she sent me. So that's the way to get. You want to get an episode up there, you guys. Send me an outline. The story that Jax and I bring you today is the story of Timothy Evans. Familiar with it at all? Does it sound familiar?
Well, okay. So the name Timothy Evans sounds like somebody, but like I don't know who. It sounds like Timothy Evans sounds like somebody who was maybe playing in the new Spider-Man or
Okay. So
you know what I mean?
This is basically it's like a tie-in story to a bigger story. I know I already said that, but this is like to this person, obviously a huge deal in their life, but it's kind of a blip on the radar of someone else. And we'll get to them in this story, but that's going to be a full Serial Chillers game show episode, that guy. So Timothy Evans hailed from the charming town of, before I even go on anymore, because I'm already hitting this and I know this. Remember, we're in the UK. So all you fuckers, I don't want to hear it. All right. I'm trying. And especially this town name that I got coming up here. It's not fucking cool, man. We just don't pronounce things the same. I'm sorry. All right. Starting again. Were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say I'm super excited to hear where this goes.
Cool. Timothy Evans hailed from the charming town of Merthyr in Glamorgan, Wales. What? It's Merthyr. Merthyr? Tydfil. Merthyr Tydfil? They're going to be like, we pronounce it Mertyrfil.
It's probably pronounced like Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
We're just dumb.
In Glamorgan, Wales. He was born in November of 1924. His father, Daniel, left the family before he was even born, leaving his mother to raise he and his siblings on her own. Evans had an older sister named Eileen, who was born in 1921, and a younger half-sister named Maureen, who came into the world in September 1929. Life was not easy for young Evans as he faced difficulties in learning to speak and struggled academically. One of the late
Fucking
talkers.
been there. Oh
Kids
no,
are kids are generally like getting around to saying some shit. Like, God, man, I have 2 kids. I don't even really know. Like I feel like a little over a year. You're hearing them like mama, dada kind of shit. But
yeah,
he
I
didn't.
started talking pretty early,
Yeah,
but
from what I understand, he wasn't really saying words until he was like 4 or 5.
I started talking early, but like I was not a smart kid.
I am not a smart child.
Yeah.
Same. I'm there. Smooth brain all the way, baby. It's what brought us together, Greg. We needed both of our brains to make one brain.
Well, that's one rough brain, dude.
I was gonna say, well, no, it's one smooth brain. That's the problem. So, to make matters worse for Timothy, he suffered from an accident at the age of 8, which resulted in a term I had never heard until reading this:
Lay it on me, and I will see if I know what it is.
a stubborn verruca on his right foot. Now, it was just stubborn. That's not like the official name for it, but a verruca. You know what
Yeah.
that is? Besides a girl who went down the chute in Willy Wonka's factory.
Well, so there goes the joke I was gonna make. For the record, my joke was gonna be I don't know what it is, but I want it now.
I want it now.
No,
Damn,
is
that would
it
have been
like
good.
thanks. Is it one of the
It's
bones in the foot?
It's a wart.
Oh,
It's like a type of wart, and
Get
which
over
makes
it.
me believe that Veruca Salt was named aptly.
Wart salt.
Well, I mean, just like a verruca is like an annoying, like nobody likes to have a wart. There's nobody in the world that's like, hell yeah, this is a good wart. But, and exactly, Veruca Salt was a piece of shit. She was a child. I know, I get it. And she was a
That doesn't
product
matter.
of her parents.
I'll fight a
But
kid.
still, maybe deserve to go down that chute.
I'll fight a
And
kid.
also, of all the feasts you could have, a bean feast. Come on. That's the lyric, right? I want to feast. I want a bean feast. Even as a kid, I was like, yo, what?
Hey, wasn't she British though? Isn't that like so? Does that make it a
I was like,
British
so
thing?
breakfast? Is that a breakfast feast then? It's like
Oh, the
blood
name
sausage?
Veruca. Ooh. No, the name Veruca. Like, is that a?
I mean, when I looked it up, because I was like, what the fuck is a stubborn verruca? So when I looked it up, it basically just gave me like a medical thing that was like, hey, it said warts and verrucas. Like it seems like they're one and the same. So perhaps, yes, that's just what it's called there. But that would be weird. That would be like, oh here's the American version.
No.
What's that?
I said a stubborn Veruca, and then she was stubborn because she wanted it now. No, I totally.
Right. Yeah.
All
right, we're on the same page. Got it.
Just took me a
Ready?
minute.
High five. So he's got some educational studies. He's got this this wart is so bad that he has to miss school from it for the treatments that it's taking to get it taken care of. He can't really walk on it. It's a pretty bad thing from what it says. And he was 8 years old. So that just sounds like it sucks. This ailment never fully healed, causing him to miss a significant amount of school for treatments, further hindering his education. As he grew older, Timothy found himself lacking in literacy skills, often relying on others to read lengthy documents for him. It's hard to fathom not being able to read. And I know we make jokes about not being able but truly, it's kind of a scary thought. Imagine just looking at a book and it appearing like a language on Futurama, you know?
Imagine trying to read a boxing contract and just not being able to.
Damn, but Floyd's got people for that, you see?
Well, so did Timothy Chalamet here.
Yes.
What I think is funny is that it's a length issue. You know what I mean? Like you said, he can't read long documents. So I think
it seems like an attention issue more than a literacy issue.
Well, like he gets burned out. Like he's sounding his way out through the first paragraph, and he's like, "Oh, right, shit, there's like 11 more of these," and so he just gives up.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Because I've got a second grader, and listening to her read out loud sometimes can just be painful. I said, "Today, Junior."
Buddy, I know?
And she's trying, and she's getting much better every single day. But at the same time, imagine reading at that level everything you ever had to read in your life. even like a movie description would be so painful. To woman have a yeah, I get what you're saying. I didn't think of it that way. I just thought it was like, I guess I didn't really think of it too much. You kind of broke it down into probably exactly what it was.
I just thought that was interesting.
But it's also funny that you say that, because I'm not sure if you read ahead, but it says that he has a passion for boxing and football. And you talked about boxing contracts.
Telling me that an illiterate person has a passion for sports. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm guessing the football wasn't hand egg. It was the OG style. But he did possess some ability to read. It says simpler text such as comics, newspaper, football reports, and his own wages and receipts.
So things
those are numbers.
Interested in.
Well, also like your wages and receipts are just mostly numbers, dude. It's like, is that reading?
Yeah.
Is it? It seems kind of more like math.
You gotta read the word, tell you what they mean.
Sure. Additionally, he had a tendency to fabricate stories about himself to boost his self-esteem. We all know this guy. A habit that persisted into adulthood and proved to be a stumbling block when it came to establishing credibility with the authorities and other people. So basically, he's a fucking... he's a liar. And no one believes him now. Everything he says is bullshit. So when he has some truth to say, listen, The Boy Who Cried Wolf is a very valuable story, ladies and gentlemen. All right? If you're not living by it, live by it. So Timothy Evans is the future resident of 10 Rillington Place. In 1935, his mother and her second husband relocated to London, where Evans attended school while working as a painter and a decorator. So we're kind of into his late teens, I think early adult life here. He's making it work. After returning to Merthyr Tydfil in 1937, I cannot wait to hear how that's
dude. I just looked it up on the Wikipedia, and it has
Merthyr Tydfil.
Merthyr Tydfil.
Method Tydfil.
So
you don't pronounce the R.
It's what it sounds like, yeah.
Okay. All right. Method Tydfil.
Yep.
In 1937, he briefly worked in the coal mines, but had to resign due to ongoing foot problems. In 1939, he returned to London to live with his mother, and in 1946, they moved to St. Mark's Road, Notting Hill, just a short walk from his future home, again at 10 Rillington Place. It's an important part of the story. Evans was also fined for stealing a car and driving without insurance or a license in 1946. So basically, that's really his only criminal issue that we're going to see through Timothy Evans' life before we get to like the meat and potatoes up here.
So do you think to get his driver's license, he had to take a written test?
Well, he didn't have a driver's license. That was one of the fines. Well, listen, I also, from what I understand, and somebody from the UK or from England can probably help me out with this, it's a very hard, very extensive driver's test that you have to take in order to get your license. I'm almost positive that everybody has to do it with a manual. And I follow this or maybe I don't follow her. She pops up a lot on TikTok. She's like a driver, like a driving tester in London. And they have to do this like emergency stop. And part of the test is that you could see her like kind of scanning the area, making sure there's no one around. And she just goes, stop. And they have to, like, there's a time. Like, if they don't react fast enough, you fail. Or it's a point off or whatever it is, you know?
That's sick, dude.
I know. So it's like from what I understand, and again, I haven't researched it very much. It is a very tough place to get your license. So it's very rigorous testing. So somebody who couldn't read much, you're probably right. It's probably a really good reason to not have your license. But also, if you can't read, like there are things that you have to read while driving. I know some of them are very short, and maybe that's fine. But you know, like,
do you think there's more to read while you're driving than there is to like get a bus? Because that seems almost counterintuitive if it's more to read to get a bus or like some sort of public transit.
I mean, they color code the transit lines pretty nicely. You could just use
blue one all the way down.
Like there's
not 1946, dog. Everything was black and white.
There's certain symbols that are universally recognized around the world. Arrows, there are certain things. There's not a lot, but there are some, and I think a lot of those help someone like this who is illiterate. Just things that we like innately understand. But no, I don't disagree with what you're saying. His bitch ass is probably walking a lot, but he stole cars and apparently he got it done there. So fine for stealing a car. Really the only criminal thing we're going to see him get into. On September 20th of 1947, he's going to tie the knot with Beryl Susan Thorley. I literally had to look it up to make sure that this name didn't get like mixed up when I was typing shit out. Beryl is a very common name. Not here.
That's a pretty sick
Beryl.
name, if I'm being honest.
I actually like it too. When I was first saying it and like writing all this down, I was like, I fucking hate this name. But as I did it, I was like, man, wish I was gonna have more kids so I could name one Beryl.
Beryl Susanna Thorley.
Yeah. He had the pleasure of meeting her on January of 1947 on a blind date. Initially, the couple resided with Evans' family on St. Mark's Road. However, their living situation changed when Beryl discovered her pregnancy in 1948. They made the decision to move into the top floor at 10 Brillington Place. Boom, we're there. I know I've mentioned it a couple times because it needed to be. It's going to mix in with that story later that we talked about. Nestled in the vibrant Ladbroke Grove area of Notting Hill. Interestingly enough, their neighbors on the ground floor flat happened to be none other than notorious serial killer John Christie, who was then employed as a post office clerk, and his wife, Ethel Christie. There's your later episode. So I don't know when it's coming. It could be next week. I don't know. But
it's in the pipeline.
You know how I am. I have 6 or 7 started. And then I'll go through and I'll start really filling them out. And then I'll be like, okay, this one's ready to like go. I need a couple more days on it. So this is one of those kind of in the holding cell, ready to get pumped up.
Oh, clever.
The John Christie, yeah. So October 10th, 1948, Timothy and Beryl welcomed their daughter Geraldine into the world. Their marriage was marked by fiery arguments, with Beryl being accused of being an inadequate housekeeper and incapable of handling the family's finances. Meanwhile, Timothy's wages were often squandered on alcohol, and his excessive drinking only worsened his already short fuse. I will say that like everybody who says anything about Timothy Evans, about how he and Beryl got on and were constantly at each other's throats, they all would like go out of their way to say how much he loved Geraldine and how much that baby meant everything to him. Like you can divorce a wife. You don't divorce. Well, some people don't divorce their kids. Some people are real pieces of shit.
Some people's kids divorce them.
It's true. Some people's kids deserve to fucking divorce.
Looking at you, Macaulay Culkin.
He's like, I just wanted to hang out with Michael. So look at me. No, I'm just kidding. After some, in 1949, Beryl dropped a bombshell on Timothy, revealing that she was expecting their second child. So like, dude, neighbors are watching them fight. They're hearing them fight. John Christie, the serial killer, is like, yo, could you chill the fuck out up there?
Bro, when you said, I did not think that's how that sentence was going to end. When you said, you just told me that she was like, hey, I'm pregnant. So neighbors are watching them. And I was all, hell yeah, dude. And you were all fight. And I was like, oh, well.
I need to wait to the end of sentences to react.
Yeah, that was less cool.
Yeah, some voyeurism stuff might have been nice. I should have added it. I'm sorry. Next time we'll do some fanfic.
There is probably a serial killer up downstairs who's like, would you guys please just shut the fuck up? You guys are just stomping around up there.
That's what I think is funny. The heated disputes between Timothy and Beryl were so intense that they could be heard by the neighbors, and instances of physical violence between them were witnessed on multiple occasions. Given their already precarious financial situation, the baby didn't seem like a very fucking good idea. Mm-hmm. Beryl made the difficult decision to undergo an abortion. And like, look, we're in a time where like, this is not an acceptable thing to be doing. You don't go to the doctor and do this.
And even less so in 1946 or 1948 or whatever.
Right. So I think it's 49 right now, but you're damn close. But again, yeah, exactly. Like this is a like, this is going to be totally back alley if, like she decides to go through with it. This is not like, I'll go down to the clinic and, get it done the first trimester or whatever the deal is. So yes, it's kind of gone to shit. They're already not doing incredibly financially due to his drinking, her poor managing of money. Remember, this is a time where like the woman is the housemaker. She handles the finances. The man makes the money and the woman takes care of everything else. Very traditional in its way. And they're it's not working already. Adding another kid and adding a mouth is a tough thing to do when you're already not able to really eat. Several weeks later, on November 30th, after some initial hesitation, Evans reluctantly agreed to support her choice. So he initially was like, no, fuck, we're just going to have this thing figured out. And she was like, dude, no. And then, so he went along with it. Given their already precarious financial situation, Barrow. Yep. Several weeks later, on November 30th, 1949, Evans reported to the police that Merthyr Tydfil and his wife had reported to the police in Merthyr Tydfil that his wife had passed away under peculiar circumstances. I'm so good at this. So November 30th, he calls the cops and he says, "You guys, my wife has died. It's not just like she didn't die in her bed. And again, he doesn't have a way with words. Imagine me as Timothy Evans, probably pretty close right now." Initially, he confessed that he had unintentionally caused her death by administering a substance from a bottle given to him by an individual to terminate the pregnancy. Subsequently, he disclosed that he had disposed of her body in a sewer drain located outside their home at 10 Rillington Place. Evans informed the authorities that after making arrangements for the care of Geraldine, he had departed for Wales. However, upon inspecting the drain in front of the building, the police found no evidence and also discovered that the manhole required combined strength of 3 officers to remove. So basically, they were like, this motherfucker didn't lift this thing off here by himself.
Maybe they were just little guys. Maybe he knows the secrets of the fulcrum and how to leverage things.
I was just gonna say he's just like all about.
He's like, I got an 8-foot pipe and a basketball. I can move this.
How do you think Stonehenge was built? I'm descended from them.
Dog, have you seen that guy that built his own?
Yeah, like rolled them on the little dealy bobs. Yep, I have. He's a badass. He's like an old dude too. Mm-hmm. So basically, he says, "I gave my wife a thing to help with an abortion. Somebody gave it to me. She died. I arranged for my kid to go somewhere, and then I got the fuck out of town." So, like, I mean, yeah, okay, you panicked. You're all right. I love my daughter, but I obviously can't take her with me as I'm on the run. I'm going to arrange for her somewhere good to go.
Seedy truck stops and back alleys and bars aren't a place for a child.
Well, I'll just give it to you now. The person that helped him arrange where Geraldine would go was John Christie. John Christie's like, "Oh, no. I'll help you find her a place to go. You go to Wales." So
everyone disliked that.
During further questioning, Evans altered his account and claimed that Christie had offered to perform an abortion on Beryl. So he's like, John Christie actually said that he would help us. He gave us this stuff, and I think that's what killed her. He explained that he omitted Christie's involvement in this initial statement to shield him, as abortion was illegal in the United Kingdom at the time. After deliberation with his wife, they both agreed to accept Christie's offer. On the 8th of November, Evans returned home from work to be informed by Christie that the abortion had been unsuccessful and that Beryl had died.
Hold on.
So he just got home from work.
What a time to be alive when your downstairs neighbor can just come up top and be like, "Hey, heard you guys were talking, heard you're pregnant. No, that's not going to work. So here's this to drink. And yeah, that'll take care of that."
So,
and like, I mean, just what, bro? Like, what?
1949, dude, wild times. Christie assured Evans that he would handle the disposal of the body and make arrangements for a couple from East Acton that he knew to take care of Geraldine. He advised Evans to temporarily leave London. On the 14th of November, Evans departed for Wales to seek refuge with his relatives. Evans later recounted that he had returned to 10 Rillington Place to inquire about Geraldine, but Christie had denied him access to her. So he wanted to see his daughter, And John Christie's like, nah, I can't tell you where I sent her. I don't think that's in her best interest right now.
Jeez.
So, despite examining the garden, the police were unable to find any traces of the skeletal remains of the two previous victims of John Christie, despite their shallow burial. So, they went digging through that garden to look for Beryl, and there were two skeletons in that garden of people that John Christie had already killed, and
And
they didn't find them.
they didn't find the skeletons.
Nah,
Man, these
no.
guys, that's a wide fucking miss, dude.
And we kind of explain it later, not real in depth, but we're only 2 years post World War II. So,
So their backyard was all cratered to hell anyway.
well, I was literally just going to say, we'll talk about it, but there's descriptions of bombed out buildings like on their street. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't
we're
think,
2 years post, which also the police force is weakened by this. Remember, we talked about Henri Landru and how bad the police force was because of World War I at the time.
Yeah.
Just wiped out. There was like one guy taking care of all of this, giant section of Paris.
Yeah.
So basically the same thing happening here. We're only 2 years post World War II in a place that literally got turned into a crater field for a while.
Yeah. Shelled to hell.
So, I lost my place. Yeah, why did I scroll down so much, stupid idiot? John Christie had removed the skull of Miss Edie when his dog dug it up from the garden and disposed of it in a nearby bombed out building. This crucial piece of evidence was ignored until it was discovered by children playing in the ruins and handed over to the police.
I mean,
what the fuck? He's just like, I'll just throw it in this fucking bombed out building. Maybe they'll think that's where it came from. When Evans was presented with the clothing taken from the bodies of his wife and child that they found, he was informed that they had been strangled. So they're finally discovered. They bring him the clothes and say, are these them? And he's like, fuck. Never knew that his daughter was dead. First time he's hearing. He thinks that she's with this couple.
Right. That's why he wouldn't let him see her.
Yeah. The police asked him if he was responsible for their deaths, to which the police asked him if he was responsible for their deaths, to which he allegedly responded with a confession. The police asked him, however, Evans' confession, along with their contradictory statements he made during the police interrogation, has been cited as evidence of his guilt. There's not a lot of strong stuff here. It's like,
so what it feels like to me, before you continue,
sure,
if I may try to.
Yes, absolutely.
To me, it feels like they told him that his daughter's dead and he's already dealing with the guilt of his wife being dead based on something he may or may not have given her or helped her procure to solve the problem.
And he's saying some shit like, oh, it's my fault.
Yeah, this is all my fault. I can't believe I let this happen. I can't believe I did this.
And they're like, oh, he admitted to it.
Yeah, but with a Welsh accent.
I see that. Yep. I'm not even going there this time. Some authors have argued that the police provided Evans with all of the necessary details to make a plausible confession, which they may have further edited while transcribing it. Additionally, the police interrogated Evans during the late hours, which had a detrimental effect on his physical and emotional state. He had been awake for like 30 hours when they did this interview, the admission interview.
And every time he sat there and started to get kind of sleepy and maybe doze off or put his head down, one of them came in and said, hey, we'll be 5 more minutes.
Wrong. Yeah. Yep. Did you want a coffee? However, Evans' confession, along with the nope. Evans later claimed that he thought he would be subjected to violence by the police if he did not confess, and this fear, coupled with the shock of discovering his wife and daughter's deaths, likely induced him to make a false confession. So he got intimidated. In his words, he was basically intimidated into confessing. The police investigation was also hindered by a lack of forensic expertise, resulting in significant evidence being overlooked. According to the Psychology of Interrogations and Confessions, it's a book from 2003 that's used pretty much nationwide, the confession displayed phraseology that appeared more consistent with the language typically used by a police officer rather than an employed by an illiterate individual like Timothy Evans. Basically, everything
At
that he's quoted
approximately
as saying.
12:45, I came home and noticed that the house had been vacant for some time. Like,
Yeah, exactly that. It's like it was written in not the report. Timothy Evans' actual remarks are written as, like Greg was kind of describing there, like much more how a police officer would go through it kind of beat by beat, not kind of scattered around how I would tell it. I mean, Timothy Evans would tell it. Prior to being handed over to the London police, Evans was subjected to solitary confinement for a duration of 2 days. During this time, he remained unaware of the events unfolding, except for the fact that his wife's body had not been discovered in the drain as anticipated. Upon arrival at the Notting Hill police station, Evans was presented with his wife and daughter's clothing, as well as a ligature that had been utilized to strangle both his wife and his daughter. Ludovic Kennedy is cited as a source in this book, supporting the conclusion that Evans experienced immense guilt for not taking further action to prevent the deaths of his wife and daughter. Additionally, it is suggested that the murder of his daughter must have been an overwhelming shock to him. I mean, it's everything you were saying. Like, he got kind of coerced a little bit. He's in incredible shock. He had been awake for 30 hours when they interviewed him. Look, people will be like, that's not that long. Motherfucker, by the time you go to sleep most days, you've only been up for 10 or 11 hours. You know what I mean? Triple it. And, or what, whatever, 12 hours, 30 hours. Once you've been awake for 30 hours.
once you've been awake for like 20 hours.
Yeah, things get fucky.
Yeah, you get tired, and then
you get giggly. You start seeing shit. Dude, I remember the first time I ever stayed up all night. It's probably like 16 years old or something, 15, 16 years old. Because every other time I was a kid, I tried and was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And at 2 a.m., I was assed out, just done. I remember we were delirious as hell. It was like 6 a.m. and we went skateboarding and we were just, it was like we were high. We were just, and then by like noon that day, I was straight up like things were popping into my periph, and I was like, all right, I'm fucking going to sleep, and I'm sleeping for 2 days.
You remember the days when I would be awake for like 2 or 3 days at a time because I couldn't sleep?
Yeah, I do. And you weren't even on drugs.
I was going to say,
well, none of the ones that would do that.
Yeah. So that was.
Yeah. So Greg knows. But I mean, we get a little sidetracked at that, but there's a lot of.
It just sets the tone for the frame of mind that he was probably in, and then being presented on top of that, being presented with a bunch of traumatic information and believing that you probably played somewhat of a hand in this by trusting somebody, by just administering something, by suggesting this. Even you're probably just plagued by a bunch of guilt, and then you don't have a way to express that in a way that makes sense to other people. You don't have a way to say, oh man, I'm really feeling like guilty, not for my actions, but for allowing this to take place. But instead you say things like, this is my fault, I did this.
I was going to say, when you know 336 words, it's hard to articulate yourself.
Yeah, but the fact that you can count them, there's something to be said for that.
So he's going to stand trial January 11th, 1950, facing charges of murdering just Geraldine. He's not being charged right now for murdering Beryl. Right now he's on trial for murdering Geraldine. Evans stood the trial, and it took place before Mr. Justice Lewis and a jury adhering to the legal practices of the time. Notably, the prosecution solely pursued the single charge of murder pertaining to Geraldine, while the murder of Beryl, for which Evans was still formally accused, was not officially presented in court. However, evidence implicating Evans in Beryl's murder was utilized to establish his guilt in the murder of Geraldine. So I think we talked about this in the last episode we recorded, using another crime to... So in 1950 in the UK, very okay thing to do.
Yeah, you can.
And he's not even been charged. He's just been accused of this other crime.
Right.
And they're like, he was accused, though. So, represented by Malcolm Morris, Timothy Evans retracted his confession during consultations with the solicitor and alleged that Christie, as per his second statement to police in Merthyr Tydfil, was responsible for the killings, despite the court dismissing his allegation as, quote, fantastic, and which does not mean the same thing you guys think it does now, okay?
Doesn't mean great. It means
it doesn't mean really good. and Evans' solicitors cautioning him about the difficulty of proving it. Evans maintained this defense until his execution. There's a little foreshadow for you guys. Subsequently, it was discovered that this allegation was indeed true. Crucially, Christie and his wife, Ethel, played pivotal roles in the prosecution witnesses. John Christie was a fucking witness against Timothy Evans. Christie refuted any claims of offering to terminate Barrel's unborn child and provided detailed testimony regarding the disputes between Evans and his wife. So basically, he's like, I didn't fucking say any of that shit. These motherfuckers are up there fighting all the time. I offered to do an abortion. What the fuck? I'm a post worker. How the fuck would I do an abortion?
Listen, I strictly kill strangers. Oh, wait. Right. Motion to strike.
The defense aimed to establish Christie as the perpetrator, emphasizing his prior criminal record. So John Christie's not like a clean guy coming up to this point, but he is quite a changed man, let's say. Christie had previously been convicted on multiple thefts and a case of malicious wounding involving him striking a woman on the head. Basically, that's the UK's version of assault, from what I understand. At least 1950s malicious wounding. However, his apparent reform and service as a special constable may have influenced the jury. So now he's like a special constable with the city. He is a postal worker.
John Wayne Gacy.
Right. He's the family man. He's kind of out there. He's known. Conversely, the defense struggled to identify a motive for a respected individual like Christie to commit a double murder, while the prosecution utilized Evans' confession as his plausible motive. Unlike Christie, Evans had no prior convictions for violent offenses other than that stealing the car, right? That was the only thing he's got a fine for it. Although he had been fined for the theft of motoring infractions, his contradictory statements undermined his credibility. So this is something from early in his life. He says things that aren't true, and by the time he needs to be credible, people are just like, this guy's fucking bullshit, dude. What's he even talking about?
You garbage. Get out of here, you garbage.
All right. Had the police conducted a thorough search of the garden and discovered the remains of the two previous victims of John Christie, the dynamics of the case may have been altered. The outcome of the trial heavily relied on the conflicting testimonies of John Christie and Timothy Evans, ultimately resulting in a verdict against Evans. The trial, which lasted a mere 3 days, was marred by the omission of crucial evidence that was never presented to the jury. In a remarkably short span of 40 minutes, the jury reached a guilty verdict, leading to Evans' subsequent execution. Despite an unsuccessful appeal before esteemed judges, including Lord Chief Justice Lord Goddard, Mr. Justice Sellers, and Mr. Justice Humphreys, on the 20th of February, Evans was ultimately hanged on the 9th of March. Dude, that's some swift justice. He was charged on January 14th and hung on January 9th.
17 days later.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 months. So he was hanged at March 9th, 1950 at Pentonville Prison with Albert Pierrepoint and Sid Dernley assisting with the execution. I thought it was supposed to be anonymous.
It's not 2.5 months.
From January 14th to March 9th?
No, from the time he was
all of his
unsuccessful appeal until the time he was actually
Yep. Ain't wrong. From his initial guilty verdict to this is a couple months.
Yeah.
However, the certainty of Evans' conviction would later be called into question when Christie's series of murders were eventually uncovered 3 years later. Can you imagine being the police and this finally comes up and they're like, "Oh fuck." You have to know that despite anything they thought, as soon as that shit came out, the cops that were like involved and all that were probably like, "Oh fuck." So, in interviews conducted with the police and psychiatrists prior to his own execution, Christie confessed multiple times to being responsible for the murder of Beryl Evans. If these confessions were indeed true, Evans' second statement, which detailed Christie's offer to terminate Beryl's pregnancy, likely represents the accurate account of the events that transpire at Rillington Place on the 8th of November, 1949. Ludovic Kennedy proposed a plausible reconstruction of the murder, suggesting that an unsuspecting Beryl allowed Christie into her apartment, anticipating the abortion procedure, only to be assaulted and subsequently strangled. Christie further claimed that he may have engaged in sexual activity with Beryl's lifeless body, although he professed an inability to recall the precise details. So while some serial killers have that, like, I mean, you hate to give them any credit for anything, but some of them do have an incredibly impressive recall memory for details. Either John Christie's giving up a whole bunch of it and not giving up this, which, look, murder and necrophilia are definitely a big step of, like being a murderer
but
is
also
being a murderer,
if
and
you're
it's fucked
admitting
up,
to
but
one, you're probably willing to admit to the other.
not John
But
Christie, if
do
that's
you
the
think
case.
was my was because I was wondering if this was far enough into his murder career, if you will, for him to be like, oh, I forgot where I put the tire iron.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think and we'll get to it when we get to the episode, but if I'm not mistaken, Beryl is his third victim. Beryl and Geraldine would be his third and fourth victim. The previous two were the ones buried in the garden that got missed.
Okay.
Yeah. It could be wrong. I have not done the full John Christie breakdown yet. Like I said, I've kind of a basic build out, but that's kind of where I'm working with it. So, in his confessions regarding Beryl's death, Christie refuted the notion that he had agreed to perform an abortion. So he basically like, I never even fucking said that, which is weird. He's like, then why did you even go up there to kill her? You didn't even have a reason to be there, bro.
Yeah, he just showed up to murder.
Yeah. Instead, he asserted that he had strangled her during a moment of intimacy, or that she had expressed a desire to end her own life, and he had assisted her in doing so.
So his story just keeps.
Yeah. And that's kind of something we've heard too from certain serial killers. They're like, oh, she wanted to die. And it's always with like a sex worker. So this is a little different, but God, who was it? Who was was it the happy face killer? Was it Jesperson that was like, oh, trust me. Like, she said that she wanted to die. I was just taking her there. It could be Keith
I thought he was the one who
Jesperson.
was. I thought he was the one who was trying to save him. Like, I thought he was the one.
I do know that he was the one that did kill one of them by like shoving his fist down her throat. I do remember that detail.
Damn.
The things we do for the podcast. So he so he said he strangled her when they were being intimate and or assisted her in suicide. So during Timothy's trial, an essential piece of information was overlooked. There were two laborers who were prepared to provide testimony affirming the absence of any bodies in the wash house during their time working there, which occurred several days after Evans allegedly concealed them. So they were found downstairs in this wash house, and
he was gone. He was on the lam.
Exactly. And these workers are like, there was no bodies down there. So exactly. Your says it all.
But it doesn't line up with the slam dunk conviction against the illiterate guy. And it does line up with, like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't line up with the postman who was also a special constable who said he didn't do it, who said he doesn't know anything about it. And the fact this illiterate guy was kind of a drunk and beat people up. Plus he's a poor. And so let's not let these guys testify. Thank you for your information, and it will be considered for the trial.
That seems like the most apt breakdown you could have possibly given. It was 100% perfect and feels like exactly like I hesitate to be like, oh, that guy was railroaded, dude. That guy's fucking railroaded. You know, I'm like, well, probably guilty. That's why it was probably just pretty easy to do it. It seems like you got railroaded, but you know,
I also wonder.
This feels like you got railroaded a little.
I also wonder if
quick kill him. It's March.
If it was something to do with, like, maybe because he couldn't read long documents very well, they prepared a statement for him. And then they said, here, go ahead and sign this as your confession. This is what you said, expecting a normal person to, I say normal with like in very big air quotes, but expecting somebody of sound mind who can read to sit down and go through the document and go, well, actually, because I mean, I've had to sign like legal papers before and they go, we want you to double check this, make sure everything's spelled correctly, make sure every period and every comma is in the right place. So if they give you something like that, especially if it's a confession, and they say, hey, look, this just says that you're taking responsibility for your part in this, and you look at it and you're like, that's all it says, and they're like, yeah, that's all it says, and then you sign it. It says whatever it says now, but you just endorsed it. So he made his mark on there, and they railroaded him with that and used that as all the evidence we need.
And I'm not sure what 1950s UK is like, but I gotta imagine he had access to some type. He had the solicitors, which are like the public defenders. I'm pretty sure, from what I was quickly able to look up. Because I don't really get into that shit, dude. I'm not getting into 1950s UK law.
Not with that
if you're using the show for research, don't. So there's just, it feels like this dude got railroaded a lot of it. However, these individuals stored their tools in the washroom. These two laborers that did not get called to trial, who came to police, said, yo, we heard there were bodies in this room, and this day there weren't, because we put our tools in this room. And some people might be like, well, could they have missed it? Could the bodies have been covered? This fucking room is 54 by 52. So or if you're in the UK listening, that's about 140 by 130 centimeters.
So
you aren't missing
like
2 dead bodies
by 4.5 feet.
Yeah, you aren't missing two dead bodies in that room. Geraldine was taller than 4.5 feet. She would have had to be bunched up a little bit to even be in there.
Especially if Geraldine or Beryl.
Beryl, sorry.
But also,
Geraldine
like,
was
if
a year old,
like we've talked about the smell of death, dude. If it's a fresh body, that's.
I mean, again, never smelled a rotting human body, but I think we talked about it before. I smelled the cow out on the trail that one time. It was, dude, from a mile away, you could smell that thing. Literal mile. So the inclusion of their testimony alone would have cast enough doubt on the credibility of Evans' purported confessions to possibly completely get him off. These bodies were moved while he was not in anywhere near his home. However, regrettably, the workmen were not summoned to present their evidence. In fact, the police subjected the workmen to further questioning and coerced them into altering their statements to align with the preconceived notion that Evans acted alone as the murderer. So when Timothy Evans earlier was like, well, I thought I was going to get the shit kicked out of me if I didn't confess, these two laborers seem to have kind of got a similar ultimatum.
And also,
it feels like
we don't know their educational level either.
Right. It is worth noting that the actual perpetrator, John Christie, would have concealed the bodies of Beryl and Geraldine in the temporarily unoccupied first floor flat before subsequently relocating them to the wash house 4 days later, once the workmen had concluded their duties. He knew they were going to be using the room because he lived in the building.
Yeah. Had a note from the landlord that said, hey.
And so there was an unoccupied unit across from him, and he just threw the 2 dead bodies in there. It's like, they'll be good for a couple days.
Jeez,
in 1955, a delegation consisting of David Astor, Ian Gilmore, John Grigg, and Sir Linton Andrews,
also known as fucking Led Zeppelin,
who were editors of The Observer, The Spectator, The National and English Review, and The Yorkshire Post, respectively.
I've had Yorkshire Post. It's delicious.
It is. I've had it. I think I was there with you. Petitioned on the Home Secretary for a new inquiry due to their dissatisfaction with the conclusions of the Scott Henderson inquiry. Barrister Michael Eddowes was also examined the case in the same year and wrote a book titled The Man on Your Conscience, which argued that Evans could not have been the killer. Eddowes based his argument on the fact that if Evans were the killer, there were several extraordinary coincidences with his crime and Christie's, including the fact that 2 strangler murderers who both used a ligature to kill their victims had been living in the same property at the same time without knowing each other.
Just never bumped into each other at the monthly meetings.
Well, just the statistical anomaly that would be. And, we talked about, we did the Adnan Syed case earlier. And my favorite quote from that entire series was Ravi Ashadri said to Sarah Koenig, what are the odds that he's a killer? Like, statistically, what are the odds that you came here to do us and I'm not saying that like makes it, I thought he was innocent because of that, but truly, statistically, like, what are the odds that you came here and interviewed like this crazy killer? Like, this is, there's a much better chance that you're just talking to this normal guy. And I was like,
There's
fuck, dude.
well, I mean, how many times have I said it? Too many coincidences can't be a coincidence. And when you
Right.
have enough coincidences, so you have two killers who live in a building. Strange, but not impossible. They both use the same method. Even more strange, but also probably not impossible. Getting there. And then the fact that they both decided to kill near their own home, where most often killers venture out into the wild for their victims. Like, we're getting to some pretty astronomical numbers, dude.
Yeah. There's a lot of zeros after the point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, like I just said with Adnan's thing too, it doesn't mean that it couldn't have happened and that it proves innocence, but it is just a crazy fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
In 1961, Ludovic Kennedy's book 10, Rillington Place, criticized the police investigation and evidence submitted at the 1950 trial in which Evans was found guilty. This led to another parliamentary debate, but no second inquiry was ordered. It was not until 1965 that Herbert Wolfe of Darlington, County Durham, a Liberal Party politician, contacted Harold Evans, then editor of the Northern Echo, and together with Kennedy formed the Timothy Evans Committee. I know there's a ton of names here. I was trying to find a way to break this down where you guys could hear it and grasp it. I just hang with me because I can't. This is the best I could do.
Dude, hold on. I feel like that so often when I do stuff and I'm like, okay, here's the people who are in Majestic 12. Remember these names. There's going to be a test.
But you know what? I'm always incredibly impressed with your name recall. Anytime you tell a story, I'm like, damn, this dude never looks at the page for the names. Like I'm always thoroughly impressed at your because there'll be stories when we did like the psychic story. There was like 6 or 7 very prevalent psychics that you were just like, you knew who they were and the difference. Oh, this is Uri Geller, and this is, I can't even remember any other than that one. But like I was impressed. Good shit, man. After a prolonged campaign, the Home Secretary, Sir Frank Soskis.
It's probably pronounced
Skoskise. Frank S. ordered a new inquiry chaired by High Court Judge Sir Daniel Brabham in 1965 and 1966. Brabham found that it was, quote, more probable than not that Evans murdered his wife and that he did not murder his daughter. So, like, that's something, right? Yeah, he killed Beryl. He panicked. John Christie said, I'll help you out, and just killed the baby instead. This was contrary to the prosecution of the case, as we know, in Evans' trial, and which held that both murders had been committed by the same person as a single act. The victims' bodies had been found together in the same location and had been murdered in the same way by strangulation. Brabham went on to great lengths to prefer police evidence wherever possible and exonerate them in any misconduct, and he did not address the allegations made by Kennedy about the validity of several of the confessions allegedly made by Timothy Evans. He also did not consider the incompetence of the police in their searches of the garden at Rillington Place. The inquiry did little to settle the many issues which arose from the case, but by exonerating Evans of killing his child was crucial in subsequent events. It's like, there is so much. And look, dude, the reason that I did this as a side is because I initially wanted to just put this as like a nice chunk of the John Christie story. And look where we're at. I mean, we're an hour in. We're usually done by now, and we're not even done with, because there's a lot here. And my favorite part is you were like, go first, because I think we're going to chime in a little more on mine. But this shit is so interesting that this could be
a long chatter.
It's fine. We're here for it, baby. You're welcome. So, since Evans had only been convicted of his daughter's murder, Roy Jenkins, Soskis' successor as Home Secretary. You guys get it, dude. This keeps coming down the line. We're in 1966 now. We're 16 years after his trial and execution. He's going to recommend a royal pardon for Evans, which was granted in October of 1966. So he gets a royal pardon, which is they're not saying you didn't do it. You're just like,
you're exonerated.
Yeah, kind of. We'll get into the details a little bit of, I think.
I feel in 1965, like his corpse would just like stick a thumbs up out of the dirt. Thanks.
Funny you should say that, because they would exhume his remains from the prison. So I guess a lot in Europe, if you are executed, you're buried at the prison. Like they don't,
That
there's
makes
no
sense.
offsite thing. Like they've got a graveyard there.
It's a grim
But
reminder to the other inmates.
in 1966, after his royal pardon, his body was exhumed from Pentonville Prison and reburied in St. Patrick's Roman Catholic Cemetery in Leytonstone, Greater London. So that's nice for him. Of all things that they could do now, that's that's about as good, as symbolically good of a thing as you could have done.
I mean, it doesn't undo anything. Toothpaste doesn't come back in the tube. But hey, thanks for the empty gesture.
Right. The outcry over Evans' case contributed to the suspension of the abolition of the capital punishment in the United Kingdom. So this case set the precedent for abolishing capital punishment across UK. So just fun fact, like how historically relevant this case was.
They're like, see, that's crazy. They're like, man, we fucked up so bad, like in this specific case, that we got to just not do this anymore. And in the United States, they're like, I got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Am I right?
But in January 2003, Timothy Evans' half-sister, Mary Westlake, and his sister, Eileen Ashby, basically his two living relatives, were granted ex gratia payments by Home Office as compensation for the miscarriage of justice in Timothy Evans' trial.
Okay.
So, another less empty, but still pretty like, hey
sorry
buddy.
We murdered your brother 53 years ago. It was our bad. We moved his body. We dug him up and desecrated the corpse.
Now that you're 80,
here's some tax-free dough. Enjoy yourself.
The independent assessor for the Home Office, Lord Brennan QC, acknowledged that sounds like a fucking like rave DJs.
Lord Brennan QC.
All right, everybody, headlining tonight, Lord Brennan QC. So he's going to acknowledge the conviction and execution of Timothy Evans for the murder of his child was wrongful and constituted a miscarriage of justice. Lord Brennan further stated that there was no evidence implicating Timothy Evans. There's no evidence implicating Timothy Evans in the murder of his wife, and it was highly likely that she was murdered by John Christie. Lord Brennan disagreed with the conclusion of the Braben report that suggested that Evans was likely responsible for his wife's murder, and instead supported Christie's confessions and conviction. So basically, the most official people that need to say something about it have said, all right, it was John Christie. On the 16th of November, 2004, Mary Westlake initiated an application that's his half-sister, application for judicial review in the High Court, challenging the decision of the Criminal Cases Review Commission. Dude, the UK has the gnarliest names for stuff.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, I thought the US
you just filed this application. Shit. What's that? Sorry.
I thought the US government was done with their shit.
Yeah. Like, Evans' case to the Court of Appeal in the formal quashing of his conviction. It's a formal quashing. The Criminal Cases Review Commission not to refer Evans' case to the Court of Appeal to the formal quashing of his conviction. Westlake argued that Evans' pardon did not officially erase his conviction. So she's like, dude, the pardon doesn't take it away. It just, it's symbolic or whatever.
I'm still related to a murderer.
Yeah, erased his conviction for the murder of his daughter, and although the Braben report had concluded that Evans probably did not kill his daughter, it did not declare him innocent. The report also contained a significant finding that Evans had likely killed his wife. However, the request to refer to the case was dismissed on the 19th of November 2004, with the judges stating that the cost and resources required to quash the conviction would not be justified. Nonetheless, the judges did acknowledge that Evans had not murdered either his wife or his child.
So, first impression on that?
Yeah.
PR move by the judge.
Like, God, we're fucking over it. Yeah, he didn't do it. Okay, but we're not doing the trial.
Because what they did is they executed a man who was not guilty but still charged. But if they overturn that and find he's innocent,
then it's like what you said. Oh, sorry, we murdered your brother.
Exactly. Sorry, the state murdered somebody. And then it sets a precedent for people who've been executed.
Here's several empty gestures and a pardon.
Yeah, it just feels like a PR move.
I think you're not wrong. I think you have nailed a lot of this on the head. I researched and put this together with Jax, And I think you found a lot more wormholes to the correct location. You know what
20th
I mean?
century
Like,
Welsh law just speaks to me, dude.
oh, that's great. Well, that's it, man. I mean, it went a little long, and I know you got a banger here too. So everybody, hang out because this is it's gonna be a good one. So
We can
I can't
hustle
wait.
through mine though, because
No,
it's
there's no need to hustle, baby. I'm gonna have questions. I always do. Either that, or I'm gonna be like, wait, you're telling me. So we'll decide. We'll
you're
see
gonna
which one
sit
I'm
there
gonna
with
be
that
right
look
now.
on your face and tell me.
Don't have any whistling bungholes.
Um, all right, so I brought the Uncanny Valley. Just like I was interested in it. I've seen it come up on TikTok and people have been misusing it. It's creepy and it's sort of unknown cuz it's like a psychological thing. And
I do.
so
I have a. This has a very like deep root in like providing anxiety to me. The Uncanny Valley. I feel
oh,
like.
let's
I
get
feel like
into
I'm
it.
specifically affected.
So, the uncanny valley is a hypothesized correlation between a human's emotional response to a computer generated entity's appearance and the entity's perceived human likeness. It was hypothesized in 1970 by a Japanese roboticist named Masahiro Mori. And he said, as robots and computer programs become more lifelike, people find them to be more off putting. Um, which yeah, like it's well, I'll explain it more. The concept of the uncanny valley suggests that human beings respond most positively to robots and other entities that closely resemble other humans, but that they become increasingly uncomfortable and even repulsed as the entities become more human-like but still noticeably different from actual humans. And this goes on beyond just robots. It's not just AI. That's a
Right.
big
Right.
part of it. This goes deeper than that. um Basically, there's a graph that shows realism versus psychological acceptance, and it's crazy because it goes up like this and then it goes plump and just
Like that
plummets
ain't real.
below the baseline and then straight back up on the other side and then continues on in the direction. So that plummet, that cone there, is the uncanny valley. And at the well, I'll get to it. So
I love that it's there's a visual. Like it's
there
called the
absolutely
Uncanny
is.
Valley because
Yeah, when you look at the graph, there's like an arrow pointing at that, and it says Uncanny Valley
love that.
because it's a valley in the graph, and there's no reason for it. It's uncanny. Um, Researchers notice that things that resemble people, like baby dolls, toys, and things like that, don't bother us because they're far enough away from humans that we know they're not. Wax statues, mannequins, robots, corpses, zombies, things like Mark Zuckerberg, and even the animation from the Polar Express strike uncanny valley emotions in people because they look close to humans but not quite human.
That's what I was
And
just gonna say. Is like that's why no Disney. Like you don't think Disney has the technology to make Disney princesses look near photorealistic, but the
buddy,
near is the hard part to get past.
check it out. Video game developers have taken notice of this as well and made sure to give the most realistic and to either go like full realistic and lifelike, or they go the other way and make it fantasy and adventure so they can avoid the valley in the graph. So like when you think about GTA, you look at Michael and he moves around, he looks like a person. You
Right.
know what I mean? But it's still obvious enough that it's not
Yeah, you're
real.
like this nobody's gonna walk in and go, whoa, what TV show you watch? Like
Yeah,
it's
exactly. But it's not just about gameplay. It's obviously part of the whole experience now. As robots become more human-like, people are accepting to a point. However, when they get close to human and they're not quite there is when it starts to fuck with people. There's like the graph is like it's around 75 to 80% human is what it seems like. Maybe closer to 90%.
that's where you fall into the uncanny valley. You don't want to
That's
be 85%. You either need to be 100 or 72.
exactly like it looks
Okay.
like that's about where it is. Um, when you in the movie Shrek, they test screened it, and Fiona upset a lot of people, even making children cry in the theater. Which I mean, that to me, that's objectively funny because why not? But
I'll watch a kid fall down all day. I don't give a shit.
but yeah, it's not a good look for a kids movie.
Right.
So the
Which
animators
is
made.
Shrek really a kids movie? I feel like it's just disguised as a kids movie.
I mean, how many kids movies do have jokes for the adults that have to sit there and watch it though?
Definitely more on that DreamWorks side for sure.
Yeah. Um, but the animators made subtle changes to make her look more human, and as a result, Shrek was a success. Not directly as a result of them being like, "Hey, we need to change Fiona," but
Right.
having a main character who's not going to make your audience bawl their eyes out of fear.
Right. And then
Um,
Disney goes oppo. They go like big ol' eyes
well, and that's the
and
thing is they'll do big eyes and they do thin necks and crazy body
yeah, yeah.
shapes and stuff like that because it's not human. It's not close enough to human to trigger this uncanny valley fear.
Right.
Um, so they turn people into caricatures of a sort, you know. Um, so like we've been afraid of predators in like for a long time, just going back to like our as far as the mammal brain goes, you know, like we've been afraid of predators. We know how to
Yeah, the
identify
reason we are
predators
now is because we were then. Like,
because we could identify predators and they all share
yeah.
similar traits and those traits are kind of like burned into our DNA. So even though we're hundreds or thousands or however many years away removed from dealing with apex predators and not being the top of the food chain in
It'd
most
be
places,
so crazy to like be like, yo, I'm gonna go get a coffee. And you gotta like juke a saber-toothed tiger on the way.
watch out for tree cheetahs. Like um but like we're many weeks away removed from that. You
At
know,
least.
at least at least hours. Um removed from not being the top of the food chain in most places. And I feel like we still have that little fragment left over from when we weren't the top of the food chain. That's just like genetic memory. You know what I mean? And then like you go to the zoo and you look at the lions and the lions are looking at you and they're just watching. They're not blinking. Their eyes are just tracking you.
Well, you
Like,
know me. I'm a big zoo goer with my kids.
yeah, that's
And
kind of why I put it in here.
the lions don't the lions are way more house cat like in my experience, and they can see you like because I ask is what's the glass like on the other side, and they're like, oh, this right here they can totally see you, like that's the point of this area is that like you're interacting, it's just 6 inches of glass. But the fucking tigers are scary, dude. Are fucking scary because
Yeah.
they'll do that where, like you said, like you're like, where are they? And then by the time you see them over, they're already just sitting staring at you, and it's
Yeah.
a terrifying experience. They're
Well,
behind a cage and a giant pit, and still that's my uncanny valley. Don't fucking show me a tiger trying to kill me. Sorry.
so they're the traits of an apex predator, but they're also the traits of a psychopath. If you watch the way psychopaths interact with people, they're not interacting. So, like the Kubrick stare, you know, we've seen it in every Kubrick movie. The eyes wide, look down, look over your eyelids. Like
Yeah,
it's a
it
psychopath move
works.
because it's borderline not human because they're not blinking, the eyes aren't moving. You know what I mean? You're
Generally,
not
most of us look out the front of our face, not the top of it.
right. So, I mean, and to all the people who did it while you're listening, did you look like a psychopath when you did it?
And
Because
I can vouch for the fact that Greg did it, and I see him as we're sitting here on a video call together, and it was terrifying. I've already had a pit in my stomach this entire time, and it has grown twice its size.
so like watching someone watch you and you don't see them blink or lose focus and they keep tracking you, that shit makes us uncomfortable. And I also wonder, just in my own opinion, if it's what makes us uncomfortable when people stare at us, or why we feel like people are staring at us. You know, like when you're someplace and you're like, you can just feel somebody watching you, and so you look. Like, I wonder if
Yeah,
it's part of the same like uh thing, part of the same like reptilian brain left over.
that
You
it's
know,
just like you can sense we've got a spidey sense.
yeah, like it's yeah, exactly. And like I'm a big proponent of the fact that we have a sixth sense. You know, I've talked about it, and
Yeah.
like that you've got that antenna, and the more you use it, the more it grows. And I just wonder. It makes me wonder.
Yeah, you got me wondering the other day when we were talking, man. I'm not gonna lie. I just been denying its existence for too long. I'm ready to branch out.
Watching Mark Zuckerberg on trial when he was doing like the whole Facebook thing again with Congress. He
Yeah,
doesn't blink. He's focused. He's giving predator vibes,
fucking love Sweet Baby Ray's.
but it's the it's the body language that goes along with it. So like, and I'll tie back into that in a second. But people move a certain way, and robots haven't quite got that fluid movement down yet. You know,
Right. Well, and that's kind of
um,
what, like, going back to the GTA thing.
mhm.
It's like, yeah, they move pretty good, but
They're very
it's not being mistaken for like human locomotion.
right. They're very obviously like not human.
Yeah.
When you watch like people reenact the GTA glitches and stuff, that's a little
Exactly. Or
closer
even
to
just the walk.
that's a little closer to the Uncanny Valley feeling because they're human, but they're not acting human.
Sure, sure.
Um, but I lost my spot. So like the jerky movements, no blinking, it's terrifying from a human. It's something that looks like human, behaves almost human enough, but it strikes that fear. And like I said, the reptile brain, like that
Yeah,
leftover
100%.
shit.
I know. I mean, it's the reason that, like, if you're driving down the street, you're never going to look twice at someone who's walking on the sidewalk. But if someone's like walking and they're bent at the hips and their shoulders are 6 inches behind their hips and their arms are
Weekend at
moving in a weird
Bernie's.
way, you're immediately going, "What the fuck is that guy doing?"
Well,
So
that's why Reagan running down the stairs upside down in The Exorcist is so
like, made
terrifying.
people vomit and faint and
Yeah,
yeah.
because it strikes a primal fear. Imagine if one of the Boston Dynamics robots, with how fluid their movement is, was covered in a skin-like material that was like designed by AI.
And it was
Like
like,
they
"Hello, guys.
3D printed
Hey,
a skeleton
fellow
for it
humans."
and coated it in synthetic skin.
I'm already freaked out by the fact that, like, those are being sold to police.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the way that it moves, it wouldn't be quite right. It would evoke that same, or it could evoke that same Uncanny Valley feeling. And it's weird. So like, remember the movie Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams?
Yes,
That movie gave me a little bit of that as
I
well.
get
Like
it.
even back then,
Yeah,
because he looked enough like a robot, but I don't know. It was just the whole thing was weird.
I think that was very intentional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like someone in costume, like a scare actor or whatever, that stuff messes with me too because I'm like, oh, is
What
that it?
is it? More masks or more makeup?
It's makeup for sure, makeup for
Okay.
sure, and I'll get to that in a second too. But
Do you go face blind? Someone
mm,
throws like a kiss mask on. You're like, who the fuck is this guy?
no, see, like Kiss doesn't bother me because they're so outlandish with the costumes
Sure.
and the and I'm never close enough to him. I'm sure if I was standing next to Gene Simmons in full makeup and the whole getup, I would probably be a little creeped out just because he's Gene Simmons, but also because
I
of
was
the
gonna say,
grease
but
paint.
now he's like a 72-year-old man. So
But still, like it's like so it could be to me, like I was thinking about it while I was putting this outline together. It's a lot like clowns. You know what I mean? Like I don't like clowns, and I believe that I don't like clowns because when you're close to a clown, they have human eyes, but they're so cartoonish and outlandish in everything else that they look like that it's
that's
not.
that's it's very interesting because I've always wondered what, like, causes people, like, because it makes sense. Like, well, yeah, you should be afraid of a fucking four-legged giant cat because your ancestors used to run from that thing. But I've always wondered why so many people are afraid of clowns.
I mean,
Spiders, snakes, all make sense. All make sense to me. But when I always wondered why, like, a very heavy majority of people, I shouldn't say majority, but a heavy amount of people are afraid of clowns. And I've always wondered that. And I always assumed that it was the 1990s miniseries of It. But
well,
people had to be afraid of clowns before that. But what you're saying right now, it makes perfect
like
sense of
Tim
why
Curry,
people would be.
Tim Curry in the original It was a good example because he's got the bright human eyes and
Yeah.
then the cartoonish everything else. and so it's not quite human. I just realized while you were talking, that's why I hate the T-1000, because it looks
It falls
human.
into the uncanny valley.
It looks human, but it moves way faster than any human ever should.
It's like raccoon hands. I think you and I talked about raccoon
Mhm.
hands being in the uncanny valley when they were that one specific video
Where
where
they're,
a
like,
bunch of them are
reaching up
sticking
through
up through the
the
deck.
they put the
Yep.
Walking Dead music over it.
Yeah.
That, or, like, that poodle that has, like, human eyes. Have you
I
seen
don't know that
that?
I'm familiar with that one, but I don't think I want to.
Yeah,
So
there's
just
dogs that have, like, human-looking eyes, and it's fucking weird, man.
well, thank you.
But like I said, I feel the same way going into Halloween stores and, like, looking at the big animatronic decorations. I'm like, is that a person? Is it gonna move?
Yeah.
But, and I can imagine that horror movies take advantage of it, where game developers and roboticists might probably try to avoid it.
Right. Like I mean, it's like it has to progress and evolve, but like tropes are tropes because they used to scare the fuck out of people or they used to work, but they just
Yeah.
got used too much. Like,
Mhm.
and that's the reason we have so many horror tropes. Cause like, fuck, okay, that doesn't work anymore. That's why Paranormal Activity was so good.
'Cause it hadn't been
Because
done before.
your asshole was clenched all the way closed every scene, expecting something to happen, and just nothing happened in 92% of the scenes.
Just exhausted the whole time. So it's funny that you mentioned horror tropes, though, because the bottom of the valley on the Uncanny Valley on the graph seems to be corpses. That's the farthest possible thing from a healthy human being, which is at the top right of the graph.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's
I will say that I have been near to dead relatives, like saying goodbye, like,
mhm.
hey, we'll give you a minute by yourself. And I stood across the room and
Yeah,
talked.
I
Like
can't.
it was definitely not a
I did it once when I was a child, and have not done it since.
yeah. Hard pass.
Yeah. So,
Hard
but so that
pass.
makes and it's the same feeling. It's that same guttural primal fear that I get from the T-1000 and from
Yeah.
clowns. Like, that's why I think that those things might be related, but it could
Well, then I'm
be.
sorry I sent you the action figure when you admitted how afraid you were of the T1000.
Oh no, that's all
Now I'm
right.
feeling bad.
Good.
This is
Um,
7 years ago.
it could be a reason that people are afraid of zombies, though, or just being around a dead body. You know it's dead. You know it's not going to move, but if it does move, it's not human, and something's very fucking wrong. You know?
Yeah, because like zombies, you might assume it's the implication, like, oh yeah, zombies are scary, they eat brains, but you could show somebody who has no idea what a zombie is a picture of a zombie.
And it
They're
doesn't
gonna
even
be
have
like,
to be like a
oh fuck
traditional
that.
horror zombie. It could be like the Haitian
Haitian
scopolamine
voodoo.
zombies,
Yeah.
and where they're just standing there and they're like, that could be what's so creepy about, like, the way the girl from The Grudge moves. You know, that it's herky jerky and not human,
Yep.
but it
God, you're
looks
reminding me
human.
of so many things that fucking terrify me right now, and I'm just loving it.
So
Literally, I love to be afraid, and I'm kind of getting a little you got that like it's not the chills, but like my spine's a little like, oh, I'm ready. I'm ready, buddy.
when you shut the lights off, you're gonna speed walk down the hall.
Yeah.
Um, Christine Lucer and Talia Wheatley did a study on mannequin faces to find out where the tipping point was. And most people aren't afraid of mannequins, but when they do hit a certain point of being lifelike, they become creepy and they fall into the uncanny valley.
Kind of makes sense as to why none of them have heads, huh?
It's part of it. That's legitimately part of it. And they talked about how, like, creepy naked mannequins are, like, compared to ones that are standing there, like, in the outfit.
Yeah. So
So
you know me, or you've done it too, but like we've spent some time in retail,
mhm.
and when I worked for a West Coast dealer of clothing, they would have a store about 300 mannequins. Because they were all like the way they displayed, you used a lot of them, and
Yeah,
usually close to like 200 or so. But that means we'd have 100 mannequins hanging out at any given point in time, and they were up on this loft,
it's
just
terrifying,
looming.
bro. That's
Yes, and I
straight
was
out of
just
a
gonna
horror
say,
movie.
so you know how it is when you like every retail place has you do the industrial shutdown when you turn off the lights.
Yeah.
You hear the like transformers shutting down all the huge arc sodium lamps, and it's fucking terrifying because there's always like some emergency light that stays on, and it does nothing but illuminate the floor and that fucking loft of mannequins.
So, I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. And when I worked a lot of retail like that, and I would like bump into a mannequin, I would always talk to it. I would always be like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
I hope you're having a good night. Please don't come alive and follow me around the store because that terrifies me to my core."
A little I
And
Am Legend.
just like I was afraid of things like that happening. Still am.
Yeah.
But
I mean, better safe than sorry, no?
kind of, yeah, that way if they did come alive, I could try to appeal to their quote unquote humanity and be like, "Well,
You're like, what's the worst that could happen? My coworkers could think I'm crazy. We're already there, buddy.
yeah, they've met me, but I could at least be like, "Hey, I was nice to you, wasn't I?" Um
Thanks for
so
the candy.
So this, on a side note, the graph has two lines. There's a moving and a still line, and the moving line accelerates much faster and much higher, and then falls into the uncanny valley, and then comes out obviously much higher on the other side. And then there's a still line, which is much lower. Does that make sense? Like, so if you're looking at the graph from your point of view, the moving line's gonna go really steep really fast, and the still line's gonna go at a more gentle slope, but they both fall into the uncanny valley at the same point, and the bottom of that valley is the corpses.
Okay. To explain to everybody why Greg's voice got a little quieter right there, he had some very good hand gestures to show me the examples of the uncanny valley.
I've been practicing these hand jobs.
Thank you.
So the moving line again rises
after I moved to the East Coast.
Well, so the moving line rises much faster and falls much farther and faster. That means if something is moving around, we tend to dig it more. Cats, dogs, people, obviously. The animals aren't human enough, save for maybe some types of monkeys. You know, they don't really
there's
bother
definitely
us.
some monkeys that have eyes that'll fuck with you.
Yeah,
Same thing with probably the dogs that have human-like eyes. It's in the eyes a lot.
Or like the CGI of like the Planet of the Apes where they have the human eyes and they like look in the camera like that.
Sure.
Also, that's another thing. Artwork when you're like the eyes follow you.
Yeah.
That's another piece of it. So, but as it starts rising, things that move become a problem for us. That's when they start looking and acting like human. Again, I mentioned the dog with the people eyes, but
honestly, when I was probably like 10 or 11, I took down a poster in my room because it just I can't even remember what it was, but whatever it was, it had that just sort of unsettling following me feeling, and just took it down. I think it was like a movie poster, but just because they like airbrush, and it was just very
I remember I had like a band poster, and it was for some metal band or something like that, and I remember having it up on my wall, and it made me feel like a cool teenager, but I wasn't quite there yet. And I remember having it up for like a night or two and then being like, nope, this has to come down. I'm not there yet. And
the uncanny valley has affected a lot of us, and you don't even know it.
Yeah. So then the things that move, they die, they go to the bottom of the valley, and that's where it stops being human and starts being a problem, because if it moves or reacts and acts like a human after that point, it's fucking terrifying. Right. Then you come out of the valley faster and then taper back off, like the graph continues on in the direction. And then we have humans on the other side, which we know and accept regardless of whether we like it or not. Like, as far as things that move, we understand humans to a certain extent. The same way that a dog understands another dog when it puts its ears back, it stops wagging its tail, it shows signs of aggression. Your dog's going to understand that that's a sign of aggression because that's ingrained in its DNA. The same way that we understand a person moving and acting like a person is a person moving and acting like a person. And when it's not quite doing that, we know something's off. Yeah. But there's still a line for us. And when it doesn't rise, there's a line for still. And when it doesn't rise as fast as or as high, it still gives Uncanny Valley vibes, like Chucky, for instance. He's a doll. He's not even super accurate human doll. But when he starts moving around with like fluid movements, it messes with your perception and it can create that feeling. And I think a lot of that has to do with the voice, because it doesn't have a doll's voice. It has a guy's voice.
Yeah.
So it's got that human tinge to it, but it's not quite human.
I mean, that would make a lot of sense as to why so many people also would fear a 2.5 foot tall, seemingly very easy to defeat doll.
Bro, we have a friend from back in high
Great
school.
job, Brad Dorff.
We have a friend from back in high school whose mom had a doll in her living room that was leaned against the wall like it was playing hide and seek and it was counting.
Dude, I know that doll. And there's also like a recent TikTok of that doll like being fucking haunted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
she had that and it used to terrify me, and I've never seen its face. I don't know if it's human or not. I don't
I
even
don't
know
think
if
they
it has,
have faces. I don't think they have
which is
faces.
which is
That's the whole
infinitely
idea. Is like
scarier.
it's supposed to lean against the wall.
Yeah, and that's infinitely scarier that it doesn't have a face. But like I'm fucking 3 times that thing's height and I'm 40 times its weight and I'm
Right.
terrified of it. And I've never seen it move. I've never seen it do anything, but the fact that it's mimicking a human thing and it's not human is weird.
Yes. Yes.
Um but the things that should be still can create the feeling as well, where the humans with right human features and details, like the baby dolls that people get to replace lost children.
Yeah,
Um
sometimes that fucks with me because a video will come on and I'll be like, "Oh, that's it's a baby," and then they'll like take the head off.
and replace the stuffing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're
Yeah.
like, "Fucking god damn it!"
Yep.
Yeah.
Um and that's the thing. They look like they should move. Humans move, and they're not breathing. There's no emotion from like, but it has realistic human looking eyes, so it fucks with
Oh,
you.
they're terrifying.
Kurt Gray and Daniel Wagner did a study that showed robots were only unnerving when people felt that they could interact on their own.
Like
So,
Boston Dynamic shit.
more than that. They were afraid
Okay.
of robots being able to sense and perceive things and make choices based on that without input from a person to tell them to. So, like, they were afraid of robots that could reason. So,
I
not so
see.
much following a line of code, like go over here, pick that up, turn around, put it here, but more like
They'd be like, "Why?"
when they take the ones out and they navigate them through the wild and they let
Uh-huh.
them like run and jump over logs and like,
Like when they have to be able to reason on their own.
mhm, that's more unsettling for people
Makes sense.
than robots that
That seems valid.
are following a strict set of commands. Kind of going back to the psychopath point, they concluded that people fear that the robots that they wouldn't have the control that people have when they start reasoning on their own, which tells me that they're afraid of, I'm going to be an asshole and this robot's going to call me on it and rip me to shreds
Yeah.
or something like that. But
Or that like as they learn, they're going to be infants initially. Like yeah, they're learning, but like it took us years and generations of learning, thousands, literally thousands of years of human evolution to get to now.
yeah,
You know, that's
they're
they're
infants
doing
with
that.
superhuman strength.
We're just fighting robot cavemen.
Yeah.
Dibs on that movie idea.
Well, wait, buddy, wait till I get there. Um, So this is what brings me to the psychopaths. They don't have control, or at least some of them don't have control over what they do. So it's much like a robot anyway. And again, that gives you the uncanny valley feeling, like when you look at Ted Bundy or some of these psychopaths who,
Richard Ramirez does that a lot for me with the fucking teeth.
mhm.
Yep.
So the emotions that go into being human that most people experience include empathy and fear. However, if a robot can't feel empathy, it can do whatever it wants. And if there's no fear, there's nothing to stop it. Even in movies, when you see like a robot or an AI system like work in the interest of self-preservation, they're acting out of fear that they're going to be shut down or destroyed. But it's not like a physical response, it's logic based, like if then scenarios. If this person continues, I'm going to be destroyed and my objective is to do X and it's not completed, you know?
Right.
So they react in a way that allows them to follow their programming without emotion. But much like psychopaths, there's a lack of emotion and nothing beyond the end result. However, the major difference is for serial killers, CEOs, and most of the psychopaths, it's not about achieving a major final goal. It's about the rewards, which include emotions, pride and joy for the CEO who's making a ton of money, euphoria, sexual release, feeling of God, whatever they claim it is for killing people. You know, there's a certain amount of humanity in these people because they're acting in a way that gives them feelings and emotions that they want or need.
Yeah.
But for the robots, that's not a thing. They don't have electric jello in their head that produces sauce that makes them feel a certain way. they're just programmed to react like they feel a certain way, but they're not actually feeling it. So very in line with sociopaths.
Like we told them what it feels like. They're
Well,
like, oh, okay,
again,
I'll emulate that.
it's an if then scenario where if this happens, then this happens. If this person reacts this way, then you react that way.
Yeah.
And it's not judge the way this is going. It's these are hard lines that you follow, which is another reason why AI hasn't quite got onto stuff yet, because there's a lot of implication in the way that people talk, and a lot of I don't know what the exact word would be for it, but
Well,
like
it's even like, I mean, I know I mentioned it as a joke earlier, but in iRobot,
Mhm.
when he, like, that's the reason he hates the robots, right? Because they didn't save the little girl. They saved he was like a drunk and was like going down in the car with the little girl, but he had the higher probability of survival, and he's like, save her, and they saved him anyway or whatever. Like,
right, but that's the
it's if
same
then,
thing.
like, he's
If
the highest probability. I can't, use my emotion to say save the little girl, not the drunk 46-year-old man.
exactly. So when AI or robotics makes the leap
I'm
across
learning.
when AI or robotics makes the leap across the uncanny valley, which we haven't gotten to yet, people do become more relaxed and comfortable around them. That's when you're like in the full immersion simulation, like the VR stuff, and you're playing football and it looks like you're on the field with the Eagles or whatever,
Right.
because you're on the field with the Eagles. You've gone full reality.
Yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Um, so even though uh even though we may know that they're not human, they move and act like they are. So as a result, we trust it. We feel more comfortable around it. It doesn't make us sick to our stomach or whatever. And humans are pack animals and look for community kind of wherever they can find it for the most part. Um, so if people are able to
Yeah, I
create
mean, aren't there like the studies of, I think they did it with chimps where they took them and like separated them and they had no communication, and like humans, like they have to have it.
oh, that was part of MK Ultra. A guy did that with his own child.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Kept her
That
like in a
might
dark
even be
box
where
for
I'm
like 2
remembering
years.
that from. Yeah, I hate that so much.
Yeah. Um
Okay, sorry.
But if people are able to create a synthetic person with AI and a robot body that looks exactly like a human, moves, blinks, simulates breathing and emotions like a human, people are going to be much more willing to accept it than if it's like close enough. But the problem is there's a lot of mismatching features, like a mouth that smiles but the eyes don't, or
Yeah.
and that gives you the same feeling of sociopaths and psychopaths. But like, have the what's even worse for me is when it's delayed, when the mouth smiles and then the eyebrows raise and the eyes get wide.
Like it's processing.
Yeah. Like it just like it know the mouth knows like ding and it smiles and then the eyebrows raise and then the eyes go wide and like it's a 3-step process to show the emotion of happy. And
Yeah.
like apparently people are just super tuned into like emotional displays, which makes me wonder, again, my own curiosity, if that's why neurotypical people are uncomfortable around neurodivergent people, because they don't pick up and display social cues properly. So it
They're not
neuro
reacting how you would expect them to react.
right, they're not displaying the quote unquote normal human feelings for that moment. And so like maybe, neurodivergent people have a tendency to mask emotions, so they might miss certain social cues. Like make an inappropriate joke or not understand the gravity of a situation and then realize that everybody looks sad, so I better look sad too. But your eyes look sad, but your mouth doesn't, or vice versa. Like you're not quite making the right face for the situation.
Right.
And so that might make certain people uncomfortable. And I feel like it's probably along the same lines as the Uncanny Valley. Um, Again, it's a struggle that AI developers have tried or have had when they're trying to get robots or animations to convey emotions. And it makes them less trustworthy, which means that people are super, super attuned to reading emotional cues. AI is, in theory, able to make the jump across the Uncanny Valley on its own, which is fucking weird.
Terrifying.
Um, it could potentially learn how to read emotions or how to react appropriately and in turn, quote unquote, feel things. Um, And if that's the case, if it's living on its own, if it's functioning on its own, if it's Bender from Futurama, like,
Mhm.
when does it become a person? Like, when does it become a living thing? It's sentient, it has emotions, it thinks, it has, you know what I mean? Like,
Shut up, I know it.
but like, then you, like, what makes it not human? A soul? So like, and then you're getting into like super existentialism stuff that
Like,
ties into,
do souls exist?
yeah, and then that all that shit's as individual as fingerprints. So I'm not gonna crack that egg, but evolutionarily speaking, there has to be a reason for us to fear things that are so close to but not quite humans. Could be to protect us from predators, like we mentioned. Could be a genetic thing to keep early humans and Neanderthals from crossbreeding.
I was just gonna say, like, I mean, originally we were side by side with other Homo uh,
Erectus.
erectus. Yeah, like we just became the dominant species. So for sure, that
Exactly.
would have been like warring tribes, I imagine.
Yeah, and then one of like my own personal theory, like the theory that people or humans were created by the Anunnaki, um, and they were created to be a slave species, but we were created from their genetic code.
Are we
So
both doing
we,
tie-ins?
dude, we are. Um, so we were created to be a slave species by the Anunnaki, and we were created from their genetic code, which means they had the ability to go through and edit our genes and selectively give or take away. So they took away the magic that they possess, the ability to activate their pineal gland whenever they want, or
Like, you just get to be sad all the time, idiot monkeys.
they want, basically, yes, they wanted us to be dumb
Yeah.
and strong. So they made us stronger than they are, but they made us smaller than they are, and because they were giants, and but they were magic and we weren't. And so like, it's possible that if that's the case, and like I said, that's tying into an episode that I have that I'm currently writing. um there's a possibility that they edited in the fear of something that looks like them but isn't quite them, to keep us docile so that we don't revolt against them.
See, I was just gonna ask, what's the advantage of that? But
if
now
you have
I
if you
see.
have
Yeah,
slaves that are terrified of you
yeah, yeah, 100%.
and never
Yeah,
want to be around you but aren't afraid of each other,
yeah.
then they work together and they
Unless
are
they don't quite look like each other.
well, and I mean, we got into that later down the road. But I mean, maybe so. Like, again, I like to go off the rails a little bit here at the end, and I have my own theories. Like I said, the Anunnaki, that's kind of my
Fucking
thing.
here for it, brother.
Maybe it's time travelers going back to cave people days and fucking with the cave people, and then they're afraid. But we've evolved so far that we're still human looking to the cave people, but they're not human and they're
Is that
dangerous. And then
would it not be creating paradox?
the cave people live their lives afraid of this, and it becomes part of the genetic memory. So it's passed down. And now years later, we wonder why we're like that. And in the future, we go back to cave people days to see if they're like that. And the cycle starts all over like a time loop.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. See, closed paradox. It doesn't become a paradox. You're going back in time to create it. And as a
You're
result, study it and
creating.
go back in time.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe it's learned
Dwight
behavior.
Fry's his own grandpa.
Exactly. Maybe it's learned behavior, and that through many generations has become ingrained, and now we don't know why we're afraid of it, but we are. It's just like one of those things that, like, going back to reptilian brain, where there was a predator and it looked similar. Something walked on two legs and had human looking eyes, and it fucked us up. And so as a result, we stayed away from it and it died off, and now we don't see it anymore. But we still have that fear because if we see it again, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's aliens. Fucking maybe it's skinwalkers. Maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about, and I'm just some guy on the internet, you know. Well, but also
I
I wonder how much of it ties into pareidolia, like where you see faces.
I was gonna mention that much earlier because, like,
Yeah,
I don't feel like I have like an issue with it, but I do feel like I be seeing faces.
but I wonder if that's part of the same thing, you know, where like you're looking for patterns, you're looking for something that you recognize, so you see what looks like a human face in the bark of the tree
Right.
because it's comforting that way. But if it were to open its eyes and have human eyes, now it's too close to human, and now you've got that uncanny valley feeling again.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's where you're on your way up, and then you hit that valley when it opens its eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's a real life example of the uncanny valley right there.
Hate it.
Yep. But that's it. That's all I got on the uncanny valley.
It's the end of my freaking report.
Yeah. How's it taste?
That was impressive, man.
Thanks.
Impressive.
Like I said, I got real into it. I was fucked up by it for a minute because I'm sitting here looking at pictures and like
it's a very, like you said, it's like it's weird when you start getting into like these primal fears.
Well, and it's crazy
like,
that
it's like
it wasn't coined until the 70s. So like if you look back at mascots and stuff from the 50s and the 60s, look how terrifying they are. Look at like the
that's
old.
why a lot of them started getting changed.
Yeah, look at the old Mickey Mouse mascots, or like the old Ronald McDonald mascots compared to what they are now.
Cartoony it is now.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like because they had to back off. So yeah, that's all. That's what I got. I just thought it was weird. That shit fucked me up. I thought it was fun, and then it ties into the Anunnaki, which I'm gonna fuck with in the future.
Fucking beaut, dude. Well, thank you, Greg. That's beautiful. I'm excited. I'm excited for the Anunnaki because when you said that they were giants, it sparked a couple memories of it. So I'm excited for when we get there. So
oh yeah, dude.
Very good, man.
Yeah.
You guys check us out, serialchillerspod.com. That's where all the information's at. That is where you can find where to send us stuff, drugs and bombs. I know we say we can't say that, but don't send us that stuff for real, guys. But, send us fun stuff. serialchillerspod.com has the social medias. It has the ways you can help give to the show and support in other ways. I'm not going to give away too much now, but we have some kind of stuff we're working on to make things a little more accessible and fun for ways to help the show out. So I'm excited to get to that, and I'm excited for some of the stuff we got coming down the line. And I hope you guys are enjoying the Chiller Chatters. I know this one it's about 75% longer than a standard Chiller Chatter has been.
Yeah.
But
hope it was worth it.
Yeah, I thought so. It was funny how much I learned from you from my story. Just breaking it down like, psychologically like that.
Told you, dude, mid-century Welsh law speaks to me.
It's beaut. It's fucking great. So yeah, guys, serialchillerspod.com, best way to find us and the best way to reach us. Like, we talk about this all the time, but I just want to keep pointing it out. If you want to get to us quickly, hit us on the email, serialchillerspodcast@gmail.com, or text or call 1-805-666-2513. If you call, we're probably not going to answer, but leave us a voicemail. We might call back. Yeah, man. Thank you guys for listening. Again, I hope you guys are enjoying the whole format, the thing we got going here, because I'm really enjoying getting to do this. It feels good to this feels like the good old days right here when Greg and I just get to sit down and kind of bounce these stories off each other. It's almost like we're throwing some anxious extroverts into the middle of all
Dude,
this.
If we were sitting here playing Xbox, it would be like 10 years ago.
I was talking to somebody, and I'll talk to them soon about when we can talk about it. I was talking about somebody we know, and I'll tell you when we go off air. Ooh, put it out there, everybody. Who's going to be launching a podcast soon? And I was telling them, that's how like Greg and I got started on Xbox parties. Like literally, I remember being like, I got introduced to podcasts while we were doing it. And I was like, dude, have you heard of podcasts? You're like, I kind of think I know what it is. And we started talking about it, and it eventually turned into Anxious Extroverts, which eventually brought us right here today. So fun stuff. Also, fun fact, I'm going to throw it out there. Anybody who has listened to us, who's new to our show, who's like, oh, I keep hearing them throw Simpsons references in there. Greg and I don't do the show anymore, but I think there's like 50 episodes up.
Holy shit, I think we went this whole episode with those Simpsons references.
I doubt it, but, because they're so just... But we were very involved in these stories, so you might not be wrong. You can look up Super Simpsons Show, SUPR, no E, Super Simpsons Show, and you can check out Greg and my old Simpsons podcast. And, that's just something out. It's just out there still, and that's available literally anywhere you can find podcasts. So we're not going to be putting anything new up there. But it's out there if you want to go listen to some of the old stuff.
Yeah, fuck it. Why not, right?
Think of anything else?
Lonelyfanswith2z's.com.
Perfecto.
If you want to be extorted for money and get spammed with naked pictures of me, that'll do it.
I wonder how many people are going there and going, well,
I can tell you.
because they want what you're
None.
offering.
I see the stats. Fucking none. Which is
Get
fair.
there, people.
That's responsible of them.
All right, man. Well, thanks again, dude. Great story. Everybody, hope you're enjoying your week. We can't wait to bring you some cool stuff coming down the line in the next couple weeks. And for Hella Greg, I'm Cromulent Jesse. Remember, don't talk to strangers.